On the 5th of May 2007, the Fujin Raijin II rollercoaster at Expoland near Osaka in Japan was operating as normal, entertaining hundreds of guests per hour. The ride was a firm favourite at the park and had been operating there for more than a decade without major incident. That day, however, would be the last time that it would ever run. Before the park closed for the day, one person would have been killed, several more injured, and a dozen more so shocked by what they had seen that they would have to be taken to hospital. On the 15th of March 1970, the Japan World Exhibition, Osaka 1970, opened to the public in the Osaka Prefecture of Japan. It, like other World's Fairs, was designed to be a grand project that would show off Japan's many achievements to the world and bring the world to Japan to be experienced by Japanese citizens. The theme, which was Progress and Harmony for Mankind, reflected the Expo's forward-looking approach. The Expo was a grand success. Over the course of 6 months, more than 64 million people came to visit from all over the world, taking in works of art, cultural exhibits, and displays of futuristic technology across a specially built venue, which featured dozens of corporate and national plazas connected by moving walkways. One such plaza was an amusement zone. Known as Expoland, it was designed to cater to the many families with children who would be visiting the exposition. It featured a number of roller coasters as well as a selection of flat rides, shows, food stalls, and other entertainment. All of it built to the highest standards of the time, specifically for the Expo. Expoland proved incredibly popular, and it remained in place long after the end of the 1970 exposition. Over time, many attractions were updated and replaced, and new attractions were added. The Fujin Raijin rollercoaster was one such attraction. Added in 1990 as part of a special garden festival, it featured 2 separate courses which ran parallel to one another for most of their length. The cars for one course were fitted with seats, while the other was to be ridden in a standing position, with patrons secured to upright backboards by over-the-shoulder harnesses. The coaster was named for the Shinto gods of windstorms and tornadoes in the case of Fujin, and of thunder and lightning in the case of Raijin. It was immediately popular, and although the original coaster was sold to another park at the end of the garden festival, it was replaced with a similar coaster named Fujin Raijin II. The main difference with the new coaster was that it had only a single track. There were no trains with seating, and all riders would ride the coaster standing. Alternate trains were coloured red and blue, as a nod to the original coaster's dueling design. This updated design began running in 1992. It was immediately popular and continued to entertain tens of thousands of visitors every year into the early 2000s. On the 5th of May 2007, Expoland was unusually busy. It was Golden Week in Japan, a week during which several public holidays fall in quick succession. Because of this clustering of national celebrations, many workers in Japan plan holidays or travel to see family during this week. This particular day was Children's Day, a day dedicated to wishing for and celebrating the happiness of children. For this reason, a visit to Expoland may have seemed a very fitting activity for many families. Fujin Raijin II was running as normal. At around 1 p.m, a blue train consisting of 6 cars set off from the station, beginning its circuit by being winched up a lift hill. At a height of around 40 meters or 130 feet, the train entered the first long drop. This was followed by a second, smaller hill, at the peak of which riders heard a loud, cracking sound. Despite the unusual noise, the ride continued as normal until it had almost completed the circuit. As it drew alongside a catwalk, the second car of the train tilted suddenly, moving out of alignment with the other cars. The car impacted the catwalk, resulting in the train coming to an abrupt stop. Riding in the front left of the tilted car was 19-year-old university student Yoshino Kogawara. The car hit the catwalk in such a way that her head was caught between the back of her headrest and the railing of the catwalk, killing her instantly. The passenger beside her suffered serious injuries, and some of the other passengers in the train also suffered minor injuries as a result of the sudden stop. Ride operators approached the stranded car, registered the seriousness of the accident, and immediately called emergency services. It took around 2 hours to unlock all the harnesses, safely assist the surviving riders off the roller coaster, and transport the injured to hospital. During this time, the area around the roller coaster was cleared, but not before a further 15 bystanders had been taken ill and hospitalized solely as a result of witnessing the upsetting scene. The Osaka Prefecture Police launched a criminal investigation very soon after the accident. Over the months that followed, their findings were published as they were made. It was soon clear that the car which had tilted had done so because a wheel assembly had broken and fallen away from the car. This had been the loud crack that riders had heard at the top of the coaster's second hill. At this point, there had been nothing preventing the car from tilting at any time, something that it eventually did as the train was passing the catwalk near the end of the ride. Existing laws mandated that rides like Fujin Raijin should be regularly maintained and inspected, and that all components should be tested for cracks using specialist equipment at least once per year, with the results reported to a government regulatory body. However, since the ride's inception, Expoland had not once carried out these tests, instead relying only on visual inspections, completely insufficient to detect microscopic cracks and stresses in vital components. Each year, workers at the park had reported that all components were in good condition. But for the axles in the Fujin Raijin wheel assemblies, this simply wasn't the case. Over the course of 15 years, the axles had been worn down, to the point that when situated in the wheel assembly, only a third of the surface area that should have made contact with the axle housing actually did so. Workers had resorted to using glue to ensure that the axles stayed in place. The axle that broke had been 15 years old and had started showing signs of wear after just 5 years of use. It should have been replaced nearly a decade before the accident. In the aftermath of the Fujin Raijin II crash, a nationwide inspection of similar roller coasters was carried out. 15 similar issues were found on other roller coasters across Japan, and these were promptly fixed. However, the prevalence of the issue made it clear to lawmakers that stricter regulation was necessary. Previously, the government had relied on park owners reporting that testing had been done and summarizing the results. Now it was mandated that the actual test results be submitted and kept on record. A monetary penalty was established for any park that did not submit appropriate test results each year. 3 members of the board of Expoland received criminal convictions for having overseen the lack of appropriate testing. Civil cases with the families of the deceased and the injured were settled out of court. While this was happening, Expoland remained closed, and Fujin Raijin II was mostly disassembled and removed from the park. After the legal proceedings that resulted from the accident had been resolved, the park attempted to reopen to the public in August of 2008. Although some visitors did return, numbers were drastically lower than before. The nature of the accident deterred many visitors, and the revelation that the park had been so irresponsible led to continuing doubts about its safety. Ultimately, Expoland was unable to regain the trust of the general public. By February 2009, the park was bankrupt. It closed permanently and never reopened. A shopping mall now stands where the park once was. It is supplemented by a large Ferris wheel, which affords riders a view over the extensive gardens, art installations and museums still left over from the 1970 exposition. The effect on the amusement industry in Japan of this terrible accident has been long-lasting. Many small parks closed in the months that followed the Fujin Raijin II crash, as they were unable to afford the mandatory testing which they should have been carrying out all along. The failure of Expoland remains a vivid reminder that safety must be a priority with any amusement park. The parks that remain across Japan are fewer in number, but much safer than they otherwise might have been.